Good morning, everyone. My name is Maryline Fiaschi. I am the Managing Director of Science Business, a news and communications company specialized in European research and innovation policy. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all in this online conference. Today's discussion is going to be articulated around a very specific concept or a very specific type of companies that are commercial analytical research organizations, or CAROTS. So what is this all about? Well, that's what we'll find out in the next 2 hours. And this in the context of two framing questions. The first question is how to accelerate innovation, starting at the regional level. And second, how to bring closer science and industry. So before we get into the chase of it, I have a few practicalities that I'd like to mention. First, you can interact with us and you can follow the conference on Twitter using the hashtag #empower_CAROTS. Empower CAROTS. You will see that hashtag on the screen. Second, this conference is on the record. There is a journalist taking notes. A report will be published after this conference. And third, you see a chat box right next to the screen. At all time during the conference, feel free to ask questions, to react to what you hear. At some point in time, I will collect questions and address them to the speakers. So with this, welcome again, and I'm delighted to introduce the project coordinator of the CAROTS project, Uwe Sassenberg, who is located in DESY in Hamburg, for a few introductory remarks. Uwe, over to you.
Many thanks, Maryline. And everybody to joining us today to this event, which is actually the midterm conference of our CAROTS project funded by the Interreg Baltic Sea region. I am the project manager sending my regards from DESY in Hamburg. Our team consists of a variety of fantastic people representing universities, as innovation agencies and research facilities from Finland, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Germany, and Denmark. And we have also 12 associated partners representing science, banking, business, and policy making. Thank you for all the great job you are doing. Later, my colleague Lizzy Harmstorf, who belongs to our team in Hamburg, will give you an overview of the main topics and findings of the project. But before Lizzy will be presenting, let's hear some representatives from commercial analytical research organizations first. I think it's great that so many participants had dialed in today. We are 236 registered participants right now, and I would like to welcome you all and hope you stay in touch with us on this interesting topic. Back to Maryline at Science and Business, with great thanks for hosting the event today.
Thank you, Uwe. So with this, it is now time to get a better understanding of what these CAROTS are and how they fit in the innovation ecosystem right at the crossroads between science, research infrastructures, and industry. And there is no better way to understand or to present what these CAROTS are about than through live examples that will now be presented by the CEOs of 3 of these intermediary companies. So it is my pleasure to introduce the first CEO, Anna Stenstam. You're the CEO of CR Compentence AB, located in Sweden. So Anna, enlighten us. What is your company doing?
Thank you so much. I'll be delighted to make a brief presentation, not maybe about how we do it, but more importantly, I think, what makes this work. I have a couple of slides that I was trying to share with you now about what I think is the unique selling points of a carrot as ours, but indeed anyone who's trying to serve in this intermediary space. What do I think makes us and others successful? Well, I really do think that it boils down to a couple of words, and it's trust, commitment, and respect. And I say that because this is the situation where we find our clients, or the situation they are in when they look for us. They are feeling a bit worried, I would say. They're in a spot they don't want to be. They need to be somewhere else. They need to go somewhere, transform their products and processes towards a better place. It could be a sustainable place. It could be a place with better margins. It could be a place where they have better freedom to operate. But they need to be somewhere else, and they feel that they have to enter doing things they haven't done before. And they can question themselves thinking, what if I don't understand what we're embarking on? What if I do this and it doesn't help? What if I can't explain to my managers? This is a situation we need to really, really respect and make them feel that they can trust us, that we are with them on this journey, and have them really feel excited about it. So excited that they are in this situation instead, which is, ready to jump with us, feeling that they can trust us to take them safely to the next base, next step for them, where they want to be, where they can maybe defend a patent, where they can make a new patent. This is what they want to do. And they want to feel that, okay, maybe you haven't really jumped with me before. Maybe the winds are different today. Maybe we are aiming for a new spot, but you have jumped before. And that's the big difference. So we have to take them from one situation to the other. And we also have to understand where they want to go, of course, to be able to provide them with the quality that we think they need. We believe in quality by understanding, and that this gives business advantages. Understanding of ingredients, materials, processes, and products that will bring them much more robustness and higher quality. And to be able to provide this, to provide quality by understanding, we need to understand a lot. We do need to understand the techniques, the machines that are at the synchrotron, at large research infrastructures, and other techniques, definitely. We also need to understand the system, the ingredients, the materials, the molecules that our client is working with. But that's far from enough. We also need to understand the product itself, how it's going to be used, by whom, how is it going to be packaged, how is it going to be stored and distributed. And then finally, we need to understand everything in its context. How are they going to capitalize on our work, on the understanding? A successful carrot or intermediate needs to be prepared in investing in all this understanding, just like the clients need to be prepared to invest in their understanding of their products. And here I'd like to finish with a video that we made 4 years ago that explains a bit about how we work. And of course, 4 years is a lot of time. We have learned so much more. And one of the things that we've learned is that even though we can be what we in the film call scientific rescue team for the urgent situations, I think the CAROTS are becoming more and more strategic partners. And that is because we are with them all the way. This is because of the trust, the commitment, and the respect. And even though a rescue partner can be looking like a hero, the true heroes are really the ones who are in that dark corner and are ready to jump. So they are our clients. And with this, I'd like you to share my video, please.
Welcome to the House of Experts, your scientific rescue team. This is the place where we enjoy performing scientific sanity checks, risk mitigation, process and product development, and where we prove ourselves right. But we are not your standard analytical lab. We are not your ordinary scientists. We believe in quality by understanding. If you're ready to invest in understanding, take a ride with us towards better products, patents, and processes. This is how we do things. Bring us your issue. Whether it's a gel that's not stable enough, a material that needs surface modification, a bottle or an inhalation device that does not outperform the competition yet, we sit down with you to find out what's troubling you and why you don't sleep at night. Once we've grasped your situation, we equip the team and define the roles for it. We're basically a team brain that's ready for takeoff. We spend our initial thinking time on reading, looking at the fundamentals, and formulating the starting point, our hypothesis, our quest. Then, we discuss alternative ways forward and calculate the resources needed.
I'm not sure if everybody's hearing the video. I don't think you are. So maybe I should make a 4-year later audio on it.
Once we've decided on the best path for you,
And when I'm speaking, you don't even see the video. Okay.
No matter how many times we've done this, we always face a scientific roller coaster that may give you the butterflies. But don't worry, we're used to this and we will take care of you every step of the way. You're our most valuable passenger and we want you along for the ride. We're convinced you will enjoy it. Remember, science is a good handle to hold on to. Enter the methods, enter the magic machines. We have a vast variety of methods and machines at our disposal, and we use the ones we need to get us where you want to be. We work smart, and smart doesn't necessarily mean big or fancy. If the standard UV spectrometer fits the task, then we'll use it, even though the unique synchrotron is not far away. The end of the ride? Somehow we always see new perspectives. Then we stop, reflect and measure again, finding something new. We turn the data around, replot, do the math, measure again and go all the way to our conclusion checklist, which shows you how we solved the problem on budget, on time, and in an original way. Then, we finalize your issue to what you wanted in the first place. It could mean taking your issue and making it into a report, a product, a patent application, or even a training course. That's how we do things. And remember, we are not your ordinary scientists.
Or not,
Questions?
as long as you're communicating all the way, and as long as you've spent a lot of time in the beginning trying to understand where the client needs to go. And it is to invest in this time that makes a CAROTS successful, I would say. And to invest in the time afterwards, trying to explain and put everything back in context. So it is the time before the measurements and the time after the measurements that are as important as the quality of the measurement itself. To understand what to do and to explain how to use it, how to capitalize on this, and to have people on board all the time where you feel that you can really provide information all the way and feel secure, because science is a good handle to hold on to. So with this, I think I need to stop.
Thank you, Anna.
It's difficult to do this.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a great, you've set the scene really nicely. Of course, I've got questions for you, and you in the audience may have as well some questions. What I suggest is that we first go through the 3 presentations, and then we'll collect questions from the audience that I'll turn to the 3 speakers. So let's listen to a second case study that will be presented by Bernhard Hesse, the CEO of a company called Xploraytion, located in Germany. Bernhard, if you're ready, your turn.
Yeah, I'm ready. Hello. So thanks for the opportunity to present ourselves over here. And I think I would like to start with a small video that we made. So this was a very short video, and it actually showed only the, let's say, a small part of it, because actually it's not just that we pick up the sample. It's a lot of things that are happening before and between that I want to summarize in this one slide shortly. And I take an example. So here's like our customers or clients are not just from industry, but also from academia. And because for IP reasons, it's a bit easier to show an academic example. So I show one that we did together with Charité, a hospital based here in Berlin, on the failure of hip implants. And the problem in hip implants is, or generally in implants, is that there is a potential particle exposure coming from the implants into the surrounding tissue. So I call this as the first step in seeing a problem. And the second step is then coming and it's analyzing the situation. But to do so, of course, us in providing, let's say, help to our customers or to our partners is understanding also their R&D question. Then a very, very major part of it is sample preparation. Just now I came back from the ESF where we did some nano-CT on bone tissues. And it's not trivial to cut 0.5 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter by 1 millimeter cubes of very dense bone samples without breaking them. Or when we do fluorescence mapping, we do need 10 micrometer 6 sections, which is also quite a challenge to do so. If we speak about human samples and we want to scan them, for example, in France, we need to have a sample import authorization, which is a whole dossier that has to be dealt with and submit to the French ministry. Also something that is not very trivial. So all this kind of stuff we do take care of. And in this, for example, medical domain, of course, our added value is that medical doctors, they are of course very, very good in the medical stuff, but very often they're not, let's say, motivated, or they don't have time to spend time in organizing all these kind of things that are necessary in order to do a successful synchrotron experiment. So of course, then it's to find the right setup in the synchrotron. It's done data collection. Just now we come back with about 20 terabytes of raw data, basically. And in computer tomography nowadays, it's really easy to collect a scan in minutes, or let's say in an hour, which is about 1 terabyte of size. So it's, I would say, with the standard medical equipment or with the technical infrastructure they have, for example, in hospitals or even in implant manufacturer sites, it's just not possible. And then we do, of course, the data processing. And then there's a lot of questions coming. So sometimes it starts very easily and just like, what's the porosity of a given material? Of course, very easy to address normally, but then because of this high resolution and this very sophisticated imaging we can do in synchrotron facilities, then there are very often new questions that derive from, let's say, the initial question. For example, is the 100 nanometer void space in bone actually porosity? And if so, it does make a major contribution. So in the upper part of the image on the right-hand side, you see some maps of cobalt and chromium and zirconium that was found in the bone marrow, actually just adjacent to the implant sites. And this, our colleagues could publish in Advanced Science just a few weeks ago. And then this kind of original paper was picked up by the General News and then published in Deutsche Ärzteblatt, and which is actually the magazine that is read by all the, let's say, medical doctors. And I think that can make an impact. And let's say this is what I call number 4 is drawing conclusions, which can mean that actually there's a change in clinical routines, or it can lead to developing of new materials. So this is a very, very brief summary of what can be done. And for a motivation, I think to participate in something that is actually changing clinical routines is something that gives us a lot of joy. And one reason I think we all work in this kind of companies is that we can also, say, follow the things that are interesting and relevant to us. So with this, I want to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernhard. Very, very interesting as well. So same thing. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat box. We'll collect them right after the third presentation. We're now going to the presentation of a company called Finden, located in the UK, and the presenter is the CEO of the company. It is my pleasure now to pass the floor to Simon Jacques. Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for the introduction. You've heard 2 nice talks from the other CEOs there. This is frozen. So yeah, so our company, it was formed because we saw a business opportunity. My business partner and I, we were both originally academics and pursuing our research, but occasionally this was punctured by discrete prescriptive industrial projects driven by the desire of universities to show industrial engagement. And we saw that there was a better way to deliver this to industry by working with them to shape their research programs and better get the insight that they were after. So our clients, they're typically large multinational companies coming from different sectors. And the advantage of big companies is that they're unlikely to go bust. They have smooth R&D spends. And when we do a good job, which we always do, we benefit from the internal marking within those large companies. And we pick up a lot of business that way. Also, these companies have, they're addressing large or big chemistry problems. So this might be a continuous or long-term to desire a product or process, where even incremental advances can have big market impact or big product outcome. And of course, many of them are addressing societal challenges. So that could be, challenges of air quality, where the technical challenge is actually being driven by, an ever-rising legislative bar. Because of this ongoing business that's constantly being generated and our engagement spread by working across sectors, we're less susceptible to those in one particular industry or a drop in the favour of a particular technology. So in order to meet the demands of our clients, we have a team with diverse experience, high competence and wide knowledge of material systems, as would the other CAROTS. And this creates a virtuous circle where if you have the expertise and range, you can increase your business revenue, which allows you to grow, and that in itself then increases expertise and range again. So it's a very nice circle, but unfortunately to get to that initial part was very hard work, and we had to actually, it was grant funding that enabled us to overcome that kind of hurdle of that growth hurdle. Early in our business, this sort of grant funding provided a stable, secure background income to allow us to grow the capability. But more recently, it's enabled us to test new ideas and approaches and get them ready for market. We work closely with academia, and this confers a number of benefits: access to equipment, joint publications. Bernhard mentioned that before, but these help promote our business. And also academia is a source of recruitable talent for us, PhDs and postdocs. And it's also one of the ways in which we keep up to date. So we keep fresh with what's going on in terms of measurement and analysis approaches. So CAROTS, they typically need a second or third part to their business. So that might be training, software or other technology. For us, one of our major aims is to secure our own IP, and we would want to do this, possibly using grant funding, but maybe in collaboration with an industry partner. And there are grant funding mechanisms which allow you to do that. So I've given a couple of examples here of grants. So we were very lucky to receive Horizon 2020 Research Innovation Action grant. That was the grant that enabled us to grow initially. But there's also national funding. So for instance, in the UK, that's Innovate UK, and that's enabled us to test out new ideas and get them ready for market. So in terms of success. So despite a global pandemic, a slump in oil prices, dropping R&D budgets in our clients, and even the sites where we conduct our research closing all over the world, we're still in business, and we've adapted, and we're not just functioning, we're actually doing well. So with that, I'll kind of end there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Simon and Anna and Bernhard. We now have some time for questions, so please, you who are following online, please feel free to put some questions in the chat box. And until we have more questions, I have a few myself, actually. And the very first one is that at an operational level, when connecting companies with research infrastructure, I'm wondering what kind of research infrastructures we're talking about. Is it large infrastructures? We've heard Anna speaking of synchrotron, but we heard Simon speaking of research labs. So what are we talking about, and what's the range of research infrastructures your companies are working with? Large infrastructures like synchrotron or neutron sources, or university labs or other research units? What's the type of research infrastructure?
Can I answer that?
Yes, Simon.
So, I feel that, we'll all be doing the same thing, which is, providing a sort of nuanced application of conventional and, where appropriate, advanced characterization methods. So, of course, we will be using, we will use lab measurements where they're required, and we will try and promote synchrotron measurements where we feel that this confers a major advantage. So we're using instrumentation, at different scales, and they come with different costs. Some of those, so for instance, synchrotron time can be very expensive, but you can actually get a lot done. So Bernhard mentioned before about how he can collect 1 terabyte of data in 1 hour doing microtomography. You can do a lot of microtomography measurements in a short space of time at a synchrotron, which might cost you, 700-800 euros per hour, something like that. Whereas you would maybe only get 1 or 2 of those in a day using conventional instrumentation. So although there's disparity in price, there's more opportunity at some of the large scale facilities. But we always use a balance of laboratory and synchrotron.
Okay, and now Bernhard, would you like to come in on that question?
Well, yeah, I can just maybe from our perspective, we use the larger scale. If you think the synchrotron is that type to a much less extent than I think that my 2 colleagues here, we use much more of the more lab type of equipment. And I think that one thing that is could also make it maybe be a difference, or that at least there is a misunderstanding sometimes, is that I think that we spend only around 30% of our time by an instrument. And a lot of the time it's just like Bernhard was talking about, it's about planning it and thinking about what to do. And that is also a type of knowledge transfer, and it's a gap that we think is important to close. And I think maybe 1/3 of our projects are completely theoretical. So that means that we are providing help in other ways, maybe from reading and understanding and planning point of view, and being a scientific sounding board to others who might be doing things in their labs. So there is to become this mediator, I think there are many different types of work that needs to be done, and ours is a little bit different than perhaps Bernhard and Simon's. But if we need to measure something, we will go to the instrument that is the best for this situation. And if that is by a synchrotron, that is where we're going.
All right. Thank you, Anna. I do have a question for the 3 of you. We learned that you were all scientists that turned into entrepreneurs. So the question is, Well, what did you find the most exciting about this evolution? Is it the fact that you're not only wearing a lab coat, but you're also, turning into businesswoman, a businessman? What's the most exciting about this evolution? Anna, why don't you start?
I mean, there's so many things about it. First of all, I'm much better at other people's problems than my own. So I can excel here, being the guide and helping others. You get so much behind the scene information. It's super exciting to learn and understand how much is really going on to make these products that we are using, all of us as consumers, to get them to the shelves in the stores. I think it's just a daily, it's so fantastic every day to be able to see that and to be able to really, as Simon was saying, you feel that you're contributing. A lot of the large companies are working on really, really important global issues that are important for all of us. And you can play a part in that. And of course, maybe we could have done that as scientists too, but here it's really clear that you can make an impact. And I think that is a good driver. So for me, it is many of these things, and it's definitely the professional relations that is granted me working in this field.
Thank you. All right, Bernhard, do you want to come in on that question? What made you decide to jump from being a scientist to an entrepreneur, still with a huge scientific expertise? What did you find the most interesting, the most exciting about it?
Well, there's some freedom coming with it to, let's say, to make their own decisions or make own decisions. I would still consider myself as a scientist, and if I compare our daily activities that we do over here in Xploraytion with colleagues of mine that now turned into professors in universities and so on. So to be honest, I think that we do the fraction of administration to actually doing science. I think it's less, or the number is smaller over here, I would say, because we are a very small structure. We have 4 people currently. And well, I think that we are quite efficient and that we can avoid much of the bureaucracy that is unavoidable in large scale institutes, I would say. So.
Yeah, and I want to comment on that because I think Bernhard is so right. When we are comparing ourselves to many other academics, the freedom to go where you want, to do what you want. You're doing it for someone else, yes. But the fact that I don't care what faculty this instrument that I'm going to use is at. I don't have to bother about any of that and who owns which instrument. I just pay for it and I get to do what I want. And that is an academic type of freedom that a lot of academics don't seem to have anymore. So
very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you're right, Bernhard. Maybe we are more in the lab, actually, having more freedom in a way.
So, and also, just to conclude, also working with industry, I think our academic colleagues very often, they make it look like as it is a bad thing, but actually the big companies in Europe, they are actually doing very crazy research sometimes, and it's very interesting to take part in this. And it's the only difference sometimes is that they don't publish it as an academic paper, but in the end, it's sometimes even more driven by relevance, because in the end, they have to generate some revenue out of it. And I think it's quite an interesting thing to participate with this.
Thank you. We do have a question from the chat that I read out now. How do you feel as CAROTS about collaborating with research infrastructures to develop new services? Are you prepared to co-invest? Who wants to take this question? So turning from scientists to entrepreneurs and from entrepreneurs to investors.
How you invest, we probably, like many CAROTS will not, unless they're very well developed, will not be sitting on a ton of cash that's ready to be investable. But you can invest your time and your energy into developing a service, for instance, high throughput powder diffraction or something like that. And you can make that happen and it can be mutually beneficial. So in terms of investing in, cash investing, that's not really going to happen, certainly from our side. We might invest in helping a company make a cash investment in helping a company develop. But in terms of large-scale research infrastructures, they need the know-how. Their scientists don't have time to spend doing developments. Their scientists are having to support their core service, which is providing experiments, facility access. And I think with where we're uniquely placed is we know what the industry wants, and we can help those large-scale facilities develop the service to be optimized to encourage industry to come.
Okay, so it's more of a contribution from your knowledge, expertise, rather than money, if I understand correctly. Anna, Bernhard, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree. I really think you made it sound like our knowledge was less valuable than the money, actually.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm just raising a question from the chat.
In the situation that we are in now, where there's so much investment going in building these infrastructures and maintaining them, I think it's really not thought through if we are not using the experience of our CAROTS in making this actually work when it comes to the interactions with industry. So I think that is worth a lot of money that we have spent all this time and years and getting to understand how this can be made working. So I think that is a good investment to work with us. And personally, since I'm in Lund, of course, I'm engaged in the Science Village and what's going around Max 4 and ESS. And I would be happy to invest even more time in that, because it's so crucial that this gets to work and that we have a good environment with very low thresholds for everybody to join in. The second thing is that I think that we can, just like Simon said, of course, there's specific things, like there could be a sample environment that we understand would be a smart thing to have, or some very specific instrumentation that could be cool and have value. And we could be helpful in sort of the due diligence of that, of making an estimate of who's going to use it and how often and things like that. We could help with the business case of certain of these things. And I think we could maybe broaden the horizon when you're doing that, and instead of expanding it from the academic horizon, because we have all these insights. But I really think that our experience is worth a lot, to be honest.
All right. Thank you, Anna. There is one more question from the chat. That is, what is the main challenge you face as a company? Who wants to take this one?
Well, I can take it.
Go ahead, Bernhard.
So I would say clearly the major challenge is to, let's say, to manage to become or stay economical, sustainable, let's say. So of course, the big difference in what we do is that we have to find let's say, the money we pay for salaries, for infrastructure, for beam time, for computers, all this kind of stuff. We have to find ourselves somehow. And I think for the three of us companies presenting here, for all of us, it is true that we have not hundreds of projects running in parallel. So probably there's very few projects running in parallel. Some of them may be a bit bigger. And if there's a problem with, at least for us, if there's a big problem with one of these projects, it can really impact our, let's say, our cash flow and has some negative impact there. So that's something that we observed also now during this COVID-19 thing, is that bigger companies, they paused or stopped, let's say, the activities, some things that we were already, let's say, counting with, and we realized, okay, if it's very few companies or partners or even academic partners you're working with, we have to consider and think ahead of that this can happen, let's say. And we survived this and we are doing okay now again, or still. And but this is something that is a challenge for a small company, I would say.
Bernhard, do you receive any public funding for your company?
No.
No,
we are completely independent.
Okay. Anna, what about you? Because we've heard from Simon that you received some Horizon 2020 funding and some funding from Innovate UK. Is it the case for CR Competence?
No. We are the industrial liaison officer of a European project called Use Me. So there we get funds for doing what we're doing in that consortium. But But I haven't looked for it either, to be honest. In the beginning, it was extremely important to me that we sort of were living because people were willing to pay for what we did. So I think it was something that I needed to have for sort of my posture to know that that was the case. So no public funding. But what I was going to say, a challenge for us, at least for CR, is to stay at the research front. Because we have all these client projects and we're working that. And just as Bernhard says, we are impressed by the way the science is done at the industries. And we learn a lot from that. And of course, we learn from every project we do, and from every scientific question that we get. But what we really should be doing in addition to that is to have some really advanced science on our own, to do things, just to be on that edge, to try things. And then where should we get the money to do that? That is what I would like to have some public funding too. And in Sweden, at least up to now, that's been very difficult because they will ask you either for your academic affiliation, which we have none, so we cannot go that route, or they will ask how much, patents will you have, how much products will you develop, how much people will you hire if you get all this. So that's the more business kind of route. And we're not interested in patenting. We're not interested in anything like that or making a new product of our own. We're just interested in doing some of the academic science that will keep us on our toes. And for that is a challenge for me. I have a great team, but I need to keep them, we don't have anything to sell otherwise. We need to be on the frontier ourselves, at least now and then. So that is in addition to what Bernhard said, I think that is a challenge, at least for us. I know that Simon has maybe more academic, closer relationship. So then you get it sort of more natural, perhaps.
Okay.
I misunderstood the question a bit. So we do have an academic, or like, let's say, a public funded project that we do together with Fraunhofer here in Germany and the Charité to develop, in our case, a sample chamber and some algorithms to let's say, to handle this very big data. But we have it accepted now. It's running for a couple of months, and this is a nice instrument actually to address what Anna just said. To invest in, let's say, new technology that we can actually use for our activities. So yes, I encourage to try to get this kind of, let's say, as one part of the, let's say, also.
So I should go and look for German money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we can team up maybe at some point. There is some.
Well, the chat is open on Zoom, so you can exchange your contact details, and there you go,
yes.
Make connections. Well, I'd like to thank very much the three of you. Unfortunately, we've reached out the time at the end of this session. But if the three of you want to go on the chat box and respond to some of the questions, just keep the discussion going. That's no problem at all. This session is now complete, but we will take a small break. We have a 10-minute break, and we will be back at 10:55. I understand that some of you have been experiencing some technical issues. We'll fix that, and we'll be back at 10:55 to hear more about the CAROTS project and to broaden the discussion on how to bridge the gap between science and industry. So stay with us or take a small break and come back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to all of you. We are back in this midterm conference of the CAROTS project, and we'll now hear a little bit more about what the project is about. As I said in preamble, this is the midterm conference. What I didn't say is that this project is very deeply embedded in the Baltic Sea region, and that region is where a test bed for this new type of intermediary companies is meant to take place. But this is not my place to tell you more details about this project. I will therefore introduce our next speaker, Elisabeth Harmstorf, who is Liaison Officer EU Project at DESY, and Lizzy will give us a better insight of the CAROTS project. Lizzy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Maryline. Okay, can everybody see? Can you see my slide? Yeah. Okay, so, and thank you to Anna, Bernhard and Simon. It's great to hear your experiences and also your views on being a CARO. Welcome, my name is Lizzy Harmstorf, and as Uwe mentioned before, I work in the Hamburg DESY team. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to take you through the CAROS project and this great change agent that already exists in the European innovation system. As you've heard, we call them CARO. And again, just to explain what that stands for, it's Commercial, Analytical, Research Organisation. And we feel that it's something that could be further developed to enhance that relationship between science, research and industry. So you've already heard from the CAROs themselves, but just to highlight a few points, they are small and agile, and they act between industry and academia. They give that targeted support and advice, and they provide research and measurement services in new materials, nanotech and life sciences. And as Uwe and Maryline have pointed out, we have a great team of partners from across the Baltic Sea region. So I'd like to take the opportunity now just to thank you all for your contributions. Okay, so let's take a closer look at these CAROs and answer some key questions. Why are CAROs needed? What are their characteristics? Are they supported by the public? And how could we empower them more? Okay, so first of all, let me point out why we think that CAROs are needed more than ever. So if we zoom into policy missions like fighting cancer or reducing CO2 emissions or the use of plastic, we can see that scientific insights, their interpretation, their application in these products and processes are absolutely vital for fundamental change. And as we've all seen from the recent corona pandemic, there needs to be a strategic rethink to force that pace, frequency, and robustness of interaction between science and industry. And we feel that by fostering CAROs, that enormous expertise that we know already exists in universities, research infrastructures, and at large research technology organizations like Fraunhofer in Germany or DTI in Denmark, this can then be made more available to industrial sectors. So you've already heard a lot from the CAROs, but here I'm going to talk to you about what exactly they do. And on this slide, perfectly illustrated by Bernhard's company, Xploraytion, we can see that role that the CARO plays between industry and the facility. So outlined on this slide, you can see some of the characteristics. You know, CAROs provide targeted solutions to their clients' problems. As you've seen, they are experts in their field and they are knowledgeable about the research instruments. They can process and analyze data, and they really reduce the burden on the infrastructures and the institutions. They act as one point of contact for the industry and liaise on their behalf, and they can use their network to provide the best possible solution. What's great about the CAROs is that they not only understand the science part of their work, but they also get the commercial content. And as we heard from Simon, you know, they are businesses, they make profits, they employ people, and they do their best to serve their clients. Our team has written a green paper which outlines all of what I've just discussed about the roles that a CARO facilitates. And you can access this paper on our website, carots.eu. So now onto the collaborative work our partners have been doing. So to further understand the current situation and the challenges, our partners from the Baltic Sea region took a phased approach. And as you can see on this slide, we went through different phases, namely identification, market analysis, interviews, business models, financing, and SWOT analysis. So firstly, the team identified a list of companies through harvesting databases that they thought would fit with the CARO definition. The next step was then to analyse this market by answering a number of core questions. So how many CAROs are there in Europe, and in which countries do they sit? What is the financial condition and then the development of these CAROs? What technologies or sector do they focus? And what is the future need for such CAROs? Our team then successfully carried out 30 interviews with the CARO CEOs. They talked about business model, financial situation, and the challenges in founding. And again, if you visit our website, you can see a selection of these interviews. From the insights gathered, a business model was then written, and we found that most CAROs provide a useful combination of 3 products. 1, conducting research. 2, providing service, for example, analysing data. And 3, acting as a consultant by understanding the data for the client. In addition to these insights from the interviews, we also reached out to the financing industry, and we learned that starting a CARO requires very little investment. Customer financing is one of the most important financing tools for CAROs, and the current CARO model is not really attractive for venture capital funding, and scalability can happen via partners. Lastly, our team developed a SWOT analysis of the CARO, and again, you can access this and the interviews via our website. So, as you can see, an enormous amount of work has gone into understanding these CAROs. In addition to this, the team looked at the access policies and the financial support schemes. And what we found out in the area of access, which you can see on this slide, is that industrial clients of CAROs mostly want quick solutions. And I think Anna, Bernhard and Simon would echo this point. Most large-scale RIs are demanded highly by academic science, with access granted based on excellence and not primarily on applied demand. Therefore, we need to explore different avenues and alternative criteria for accessing those research infrastructures, acknowledging, for example, possible effects on job creation and regional development. In the area of financial support, we found out that very few national policies are available to set up innovative SMEs, and also those programs to help the SMEs access RIs. In addition to that, the support across borders we found is very limited, for example, with the voucher schemes. And we found on an EU level that there is an instrument missing, which is devoted to financial as well as access support, or in other words, keys and carrots. And finally, we learned that most CAROs, as you've seen, our founders are scientists turned entrepreneurs. So knowledge transfer amongst them with regards to pricing structures, advertising and customer acquisition is crucial, in addition to those data handling routines and methods. Which brings me nicely onto building a network. So our team felt that by creating a network, the CAROs could overcome most of these challenges. And as one of the project milestones, we hosted a series of workshops for companies that provide or wish to provide services to industry by using X-ray and neutron instruments at these large-scale facilities. As you can see on this slide, in the photo, these are the participants of the last physical meeting for the core network in Grenoble in February. Members of this core network next week are going to sign a letter of intent, and this is all about speaking with one voice towards the facilities and policymakers, about increasing the visibility of the value creation of the CAROs, enabling them to reach new customers and also collaborate on improved customer service. And all in all, to act as advocates for easier non-academic access. So following this event, the team will also host an event for a larger network on the 23rd of September. And you can see the invitation on the slide here. So if it is of interest and you want to join, please hop onto our website and you'll find out further information. So onto my last slide. Hopefully we've demonstrated the importance of CAROs for innovation from our CARO CEOs and also this project summary. What I'd like you to take away is 4 core messages, which you can see popping up on the slide here. Firstly, in the area of competence, as you've seen, there's a growing demand for expertise, knowledge, and technology transfer in materials and life sciences. And we can see a great opportunity to foster competence in CAROTS and open up some career paths. Around policy support, we need to explore different avenues and alternative criteria for accessing research infrastructures by acknowledging that job creation and the regional development. And additionally, a policy instrument targeting CAROTS within Horizon Europe would be beneficial. Around entrepreneurial spirit, we've seen that CAROTS unburden the science sector and they understand the commercial aspect of their clients. To support this, I'm pleased to announce that we're going to be hosting a competition to found a new CARO, and we're looking for junior and senior scientists who are seeking an academic career with entrepreneurial spirit. As a first step, we will offer coaching to found a CARO, so please stay tuned to our social media channels and websites for more details. And finally, building a network. So we hope to make CAROs speak with one voice and become that powerful change agent. To support this network, we've recently created an advisory committee, and this is an exciting development. As part of this committee, we have 5 knowledgeable representatives of policy, science and business from Poland, Estonia, Sweden, Lithuania and Germany. So thank you. Thank you for watching and listening. I hope you found this topic as exciting as we do. And don't forget to visit our website for all the reports, case studies and upcoming events. I'll hand back to you, Maryline.
Thank you, Lizzy. And thank you for this very clear presentation. It's fantastic to hear that CAROTS is boiling with activities and further achievements in the coming months. So it is, we've heard about CAROTS and intermediary companies. What we will do now is broaden the discussion and discuss the importance of improving industry-science cooperation to solve societal challenges. As a matter of fact, the COVID crisis has highlighted the need for Europe to be less dependent on the rest of the world. The impact of the crisis on supply chains, on production sites, and the urgency to strengthen regional technology capabilities have ignited the need to reinforce industrial R&D and fill out the gaps between science and industry become more critical than ever. And to identify these gaps and discuss possible solutions to bridge them, it is now my pleasure to introduce the 4 speakers that will join me for a panel discussion in the next 40 minutes. So first, well, Anna, you know Anna Stenstam. She was one of the presenters in the first part of the conference. Second speaker is Caterina Biscari. She's the director of the ALBA Synchrotron. She's also the chair of LIPS, LIPS standing for the League of European Accelerator-Based Photon Sources. We also joined by Johannes Klumpers, the head of Research and Industrial Infrastructure Unit at DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission. And finally, Ernst Lutz, the president of EIRMA, that EIRMA being the European Industrial Research Management Association, is also the general manager of the business unit Wind Materials in a materials company called GORIT. Thank you very much to the 4 of you for joining us today. So here we will run the discussion more as a debate. So I do have a very simple question just to set the scene, and maybe this first question can go to you, Caterina, just to understand how do research infrastructure fit in the relationship between scientists and industry, or how important is the collaboration between industry and research infrastructure? Caterina, why don't you address this first question?
First of all, thank you for the invitation to participate to these CAROTS. I'm here, as you said, representing not only ALBA, but also LIPS, which is the league, you said, the European Accelerator-Based Photon Sources. It means that we are consortium of almost 20 different facilities in 10 different countries in Europe, working together, developing together our strategies and our services to the society. And of course, through the service of the society, we mean, of course, the service also to the industry and the collaboration with the industry. There are two ways of collaborating with industry. One is not the subject of this meeting, I think, but I want to mention is also the importance of the industry as providers for the research infrastructure, because that is the way the research infrastructures develop themselves through ideas which are developed in the scientific field, in the staff which is in the research infrastructure, but then is made real in the companies. And this is one very important way of empowering companies for technology development. But then we are the instruments of industry. We are the instruments mainly of the academic world, of the scientific institutions, of the universities, where public research takes place, and that are our main customers who publish their work. But then a very important part are the users from industry, and this is a developing field, and it's becoming always more important. In each of the research infrastructure that I am representing, but I know also in other fields, there is what we call ILO, Industrial Liaison Office, which is, if you want, is a kind of CARO, but local in the facility, which speaks to industry, speaks to companies, speaks the language of the companies, and is the bridge between the scientist, the instrument, the scientific instrument, and the company. And this is a very important contribution to the health of the facility, because through the interaction with the companies and through the interaction with what is the real world, there is enrichment also with new ideas, which then fall back also in the society. So the importance of this collaboration is clear to everyone now, and is becoming much more clear also in the future through the projects which are foreseen also in Horizon Europe. And there is, if we look at our academic users, we also monitor which of these academic users are directly involved also with industry. And it turns out that depending on the facility, but we are talking of something like at least 1/4 or 1/3 of our academic users are somehow involved also with industry. Okay. So the common developments are a real strength of both the research infrastructures and of the industrial world.
Very good. Thank you, Caterina. Can I turn now to Johannes? And with the same question, how important, if from an institutional point of view, from the European Commission point of view, how important is collaboration between research infrastructures and industry, small or large companies?
Well, I believe that that there is already for a couple of years there have been a couple of these larger research infrastructures like ALBA or DESY. Both of them are present here, but also CERN and others in the medical field very strongly as well have been existing, and large companies have used large research infrastructures, and this is important, and it can probably be further enlarged, that use. I think where there's a difficulty is another angle is the supply side to these large research infrastructures, where there is, when they upgrade their equipment or when a new large infrastructure is under construction, like the ESS right now, or like the LI infrastructure in Hungary, Czech Republic, and Romania, there is a lot of technology input that is provided by smaller and larger companies. So there are two sides. There is the use of these structures by industry, and there's the role of suppliers, the role of industry as suppliers to these infrastructures, and both of these elements are actually a driving force in innovation. So definitely the link between industries in general and research infrastructures is something that we would like to strengthen, and we would like to have more interaction, if possible, in the future in that area. We are also looking into the question of technology infrastructures, which is almost, or maybe even more ill-defined as what a research infrastructure is. So that also varies a lot, what technology infrastructures, what people think of, what falls under that title. But for example, living labs or test beds and these kind of things, they fall under what we believe what technology infrastructures are. And these technology infrastructures of this type, at least, they can play an enormously important and role for smaller companies, helping them bring things to the market, helping them test acceptance of certain new technological solutions, and that is another angle that we would like to explore in the future.
Okay, Johannes, I'll stop you here just because I'd like to come back to this point of what you're working on, and especially in helping smaller companies to develop faster their technologies by cooperating with research infrastructures. But since we have a representative of the industry on the panel, Ernst, can I ask you, do a company like Gurit, where you are now, or like Grundfos, you used to be the CTO of Grundfos, or as part of EIRMA, from your exchanges with the other research industrial managers, do companies value the collaboration with research infrastructures? How much is it needed from your standpoint?
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. What we see is a change in the whole environment for how research is done, how development is done. Not only the medium or smaller sized companies do not do research anymore, or to a very limited effect, but we see also many of the bigger companies reduce significantly the way how they do research, how they develop. Basically, that leads to an increased need for these kind of available infrastructures across Europe. I think the very big companies and the very big research institutes, like what Johannes was mentioning before, they knew how to play with each other. They always did in the past, but it becomes much more important now also for the medium-sized or smaller sized industries to learn how to utilize these infrastructures, because in-house we don't have that capabilities anymore, and it's very unlikely that these capabilities will come back. So we are facing basically two problems: how to access those infrastructures, how to use CAROTS to help us solve our problems, but then also in-house, do we still have these capabilities and competencies to translate the results into meaningful product development that we need to do to stay innovative? And I think that is a trend that has been developed stronger and stronger over the last 10, 20 years. And when I talk to all of my colleagues at EIRMA, the technology managers of industries across Europe, I think we're all facing a very similar situation here.
Thank you. Well, it makes things very concrete. And in fact, Anna, you wanted to jump in here.
No, it was Caterina who wanted to jump
Caterina,
in.
Please come in, Caterina.
Yes, well, I want to mention that what Ernst has just said is something that worries also the world of the research infrastructure. And we are developing and we are working on a pilot project in one of the programs from Horizon 2020, which is called Tamata Inside Calypso, which is opening the access to small and medium industries companies through the participation to this European project, so that the companies are directly, they don't need to pay the first access. They are just testing their capabilities inside and the instrumentation of the research infrastructure. And this is something that it goes all over the Europe. Each company from Europe can access to any synchrotron, which is included in this program and is going quite well. And many of the companies that start with one test funded by the project, then they come back after to the research infrastructure that they choose just as usual customer. So this is something that was a test. We will continue with that in our next call, our next project, Leaps in Nov. And I think this kind of initiative could develop not only as an European project, but something that also national governments should think about to help industries to access the research infrastructure so that they learn how their capacity can be improved by this process. And it's something that should come also from the governments.
From the governments and probably from Europe. So Anna, you can comment here, and then Johannes, I'll have to come to you because we're right at the core of what you were talking about. Anna.
Yeah, I want to come back to what Ernst said actually about the change in where things are done. And I think what we are aiming for now is more of really a true ecosystem working together. And in order to provide not just the data, as I tried to stress earlier on, but actually to provide sort of how to use it, where to implement it. And this is innovation, yes, but it's so much implementation. And to be able to do that, to contribute with the data in the right time, to the right place with your client, that means that you have to understand them. So I think that's what we're talking about here is long-term relationships, because it's one thing providing data, which is great if more people can do that. But you also have to have this bridging and getting it into the process of the big company. And I think there is where more and more companies like ours are transforming into becoming partners and not just suppliers. And we could even be called innovation suppliers, even though maybe innovation is really done still by the company, but we are coming in from the side and we are trying. It is about this translating what the data means, not means from a scientific point of view, but means for the business.
Understood.
So I think that is what Ernst is really bit talking about is this change. And to have more of a discussion that not just scouting new technologies or not just scouting new possibilities, but actually working in collaboration like that.
No, that's very good. Ernst, I know you want to come in on that, but because Johannes has to leave in about 5 minutes, if you don't mind, I'll just pass the floor to him first to hear about what the Commission is planning to do to strengthen this relationship between research infrastructures and small companies. Johannes.
Thank you very much, Ernst, for giving me the possibility. Before I reply to this, I would maybe say a couple of words on the CAROTS. What I like about that initiative is that it's so strongly anchored or with a strong connection to the Baltic states. I like that because traditionally in the past decades, when the word innovation was mentioned or technology transfer, it was always originating from the UK, basically most of the time, and maybe sometimes Sweden, maybe sometimes the Netherlands, maybe sometimes Germany, but the Baltic states were not really present in the past. So getting that initiative with that strong rooting in the Baltic states is, I think, really good. What is with the CAROTS a little bit difficult for us, I also discussed this actually with my colleagues in the European Innovation Council, is that we do have a little bit difficulties in placing them between the RTOs, so the research and technology organizations type of Fraunhofer or TNO in the Netherlands or VTT in Finland and so on. The contract research organizations like engineering bureaus that do a lot of contract research for car companies, for example. We have tech transfer offices, we have consultancy companies, we have technology infrastructures. So the field of intermediaries, it is not that there was no one in between research and industry. So the CARO initiative might well be a totally interesting initiative. It is just that it is one of several and intermediaries, and in that field of intermediaries, probably the CAROs have still to do some work to find their place and also to make it clear what distinguishes them, what is their additional plus in relation to maybe already existing things.
Are there any synergies between your unit and the European Innovation Council? I mean, those CAROs are small companies, so where do they fit?
We are starting exploring that collaboration with the EIC and with the European Innovation Council. And one of the things that we are really looking into is the Attract initiative, which Ernst probably knows because EIRMA is part of that, which brings large infrastructures together with companies and also especially smaller companies. We are trying, and that is an initiative which works really well, has had a lot of impact, has had a lot of success, and we are trying to bring this kind of initiatives into the European Innovation Council, and the European Innovation Council is interested in taking that over. And I think the CAROs, with their capacity of analyzing data for the purpose of what it means for business, so they are sitting in between they are a little bit an RTO, research and technology organization, but on a private basis, so not government driven. And it is definitely, I think, the CAROs should reach out to the European Innovation Council. They are very much invited to reach out also to me, to us in the Research Infrastructures Unit. And as I said, we try to work, and we work together with the European Innovation Council people, and we will try all together to bring this up to speed. How that will exactly work, that remains to be determined. But I think, and I would invite the CAROs to stay in tune, to stay in touch, and to with both of us, the Innovation Council and my unit, so to see and to explore where they fit best.
Very good, thank you. It's a very nice call that you're launching to the project team. Ernst, back to you. Sorry, you wanted to react to what Anna was saying, so come in.
Thank you. Both statements, actually, Anna and Johannes are correct. There are many institutes out there, and more are coming with this intermediary role. But we shouldn't forget the old system took 50 years to build up with a classical position, who would do what kind of R&D, who would be the intermediary, who would be the RTOs, and so on. What we see today also with the globalization, with a change in innovation speed, with a significant change of how industry, especially the large industries, operate, that all is not happening overnight. So probably in 20 years from now or 15 years from now, we will see a consolidation of who will be the intermediaries that are really needed, who are the ones that just help this change process. But I don't say that negative, quite the opposite. And as Johannes said, with Attract, we have a group, a program in there to make these connections, and we will have many more. And I think that is all needed. That is all absolutely appropriate for the time being to help us develop this new setup of who does what in the R&D and innovation space. But probably in 10 years, it will be a consolidation. Fine.
All right, good. So coming back to the question of the role of CAROTS when it comes to the use we want to do with the data. So here it is beyond research or analytical research itself. It's, Anna, do I understand correctly that that your services as a CARO or as a CAROT is much broader than that, and especially in accompanying the companies towards accelerating the transition between breakthrough science and a product ready to be commercialized. Can you just explain that a little bit just to make it clearer?
Do you want me to explain how innovation is done?
Oh, that would be fantastic. Okay. Can you do that in 1 minute?
Yeah. Well, I think what we are good at and what I think is important here is to understand us as a service provider. And you said it, and I think it just have to be said a couple of times. And that service is that you're helping someone, right? So we have to understand where they are first. So the way we work, it's a lot of time trying to understand what the problem really is, not the symptoms. The symptoms are clear, what the real problem is. And from there, I think root cause, using the scientific method, you know, just digging into what is the hypothesis, why is this working or not working, and providing more and more understanding about why things are happening and not. And then we are working extremely agile. And yes, maybe we will grow. Maybe there will be consolidations. Maybe all these things will happen. But I think what is extremely important also in the future will be that you are agile, that you are changing the plan as you see the data, that you are not just stuck with a protocol that you wrote for the funding partner or something 2 years ago, and you have to stick with it. Constantly changing, constantly adapting to the new situation. There's new information coming also from the client, because they are not stopping. They are also learning and working on the system in parallel as we are. So there's more information coming in. We're learning things all the way. Of course, you have to adapt. You have to change the way you were thinking about the problem and thinking about the solution. I think this is a major key to success here. And of course, a large organization can be flexible. Absolutely. But it's much easier to be flexible when you're small. And it's easier to be flexible when you know that you're having that role. You're supposed to move. You're supposed to adapt. So I think it's a cultural thing, definitely. And that culture can be nurtured also in a larger organization and in an older, more mature organization. But it's difficult. It is much easier to have that culture when you're entrepreneurial sort of startup stage. So I think one of the challenges here is to continue to be like that, because this is actually very added value to the more mature and larger companies that you serve, is that you are adapting and that you can align your processes to what you're doing, what they are doing, and sort of be on your toes all the time. And I think this is a very important aspect of the service that is provided. I have no idea if I answered your question now. Actually.
You have. Yeah, no. I think it's important that you come in when there is this discussion around the intermediaries and that you bring this voice. So it's all very good. Ernst, I think you wanted to come in here.
Yeah, I can only second that. And the point is, of course, as a large industry, we try to be agile, but that takes time. And everybody who has made some change programs in industry or bigger organizations know how much time that takes. So it's not so much that we don't see the need or we don't want the need. It's more like we need help. And I like the statement of Anna. That is service that we can use. That is service that brings value to us. And we need more and more of that. And today, when we look at where innovation happens, I think reality tells us that innovation more and more happens at these interfaces between all the different stakeholders and players. It's not so much monolithic anymore, that within one company, innovation is developed from a research result all the way to a product that sells well. It's much more these interactions with all the different players. And here, the need for these intermediaries is incredibly obvious. So I very much like the statement what Anna said, and also before, that is what we need, and that's why there is a reason and a space available for CAROTS to come and grow.
I would say that the innovation is very often, maybe not by the coffee brewer, like we said in the old days, that's where you get some ideas perhaps, but it's by the whiteboard. It's when you gather everybody and you look at the results together and someone says, but I don't get it. Can you draw it for me? And then someone jumps up and tries to draw it and you realize, I don't really get it either now when I'm drawing. And then you are sort of have to start all over, turning everything upside down, thinking about it again, and then you get it. I think that's when we sort of grind all the data together with the people who are going to use it and how they're going to use it. It's when we look at the data together. That's when it happens.
All right. Well, there is actually, since you both mentioned these interfaces, one natural question would be how to improve the chains of communications between the various actors. So the scientists on one side, the research infrastructures, the companies, the intermediaries, and even policymakers. I mean, it's really interesting what Johannes was saying, and to have his own point of view, that he needs to understand where it all fits in. So how do we improve those chains of command? Is it by having a network of CAROTS, or is it by having functions that are dedicated to that inside organizations? What do you think?
Thank you. I think we need to work in all these different organizations to improve the communication. And this is something that we are in the world of the research infrastructure, in particular in LIBS, we are really preparing a strategy to have a stronger continuous relationship with industry. And I must say that it's not only CAROTS. I have seen, for example, inside LIBS, the industrial users who come through these intermediate companies are, depending on the facility of the order, we can go from 10% up to 30%. There are some of them which are more active, for example, pharmaceuticals. That is something that is very common to have this carrot in the pharmaceutical world. But there are also all the others. And when we talk of our relationship with industry, of course, we cover everything and also the direct connection. I think it's very important for us. One of our plans is also training of our scientists, of the people, of the staff in the facilities, training them to be more open to collaboration, to know about intellectual property, protection, exploitation. I think this is very important to make them speak the same language of companies. So this is one part which is going on, but there is still a lot that can be improved. Of course, when planning also projects, having industrial partners, that is the perfect way for the development. And then we need communication, we need outreach, we need workshops, we need good communicators from I'm talking from the part of the research infrastructures and of the scientists. We need good communicators that are interested not only in the science, in the basic science, which is the basis of our research, but in applied science, in applications. And this part is there, but also is in growing, and that is very important. And I think it's also important that we consider that industries, of course, each country is more interested in developing its own industrial world, but it's important also as the research is cross-border, that also industry should try to connect more with the others, with industries in other countries. This is also something important.
All right, Ernst, do you want to come in here?
Well, I can just say it's extremely important for us to be updated on what can be done at the different sites, of course. I mean, I have used techniques that I didn't know existed because someone said, you know, they exist. I mean, we will not come up with the idea to use it if you don't know it exists. So that's the first step. You have to know, and these things that these fantastic sites are constantly developing. They could be the same instrument, but with a new sample environment, or something that has been limiting before is not limited anymore, and you need to know that. So of course there needs to be a continuous update, I think, from the large research infrastructures to everybody, but foremost to the mediators. I think it must be easier to communicate with the mediators and CAROTS than many others, because we already know a lot about it, so we can just be updated. So I think that would be an easier channel to use. And then I think that it goes two ways. We can be better at communicating in what we have learned from the outside and what could be needed. And maybe we don't do that to a certain extent. And one of the reasons could be that we are a bit afraid of losing the clients. I mean, to be frank, if I'm working with a partner and I want that to be my partner, my client. So this is, of course, a maturity thing that we can all, be better at. But that could be one of the reasons that you don't want to let everybody in, and so you want to sort of be there and have a value in between. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying it's a very human thing, I would say. I think that what really needs to change is the communication going less, I would call it, inside out and more outside in. I think communication should be more like journalists asking questions. So try to be more of a curious person asking what you want, and be curious about the other person and not talk so much about yourself. Here I have problems with this myself. So, but I think it's very, very important. When we come to the different research infrastructures, we learn a lot about the instrument, and that's not what I'm not interested in that so much. I'm interested in what it can do, not how it is built. And if that goes for me, I think it will be even worse for someone who is a couple of steps further away. So
all right,
I think it's that type of communication we all need to be better at. Definitely, me, myself, and I also. But I think it's something that we all have to remember.
Caterina, I have a question for you, because you're the chair of LEAPS, and LEAPS is a consortium of research infrastructures. So does the fact that you've pulled strengths together, that you've put all these organizations together, have changed anything in terms of improving this relationship with the other stakeholders?
I would say yes, surely. This is something that is already in these few years that we are starting to work together. We were always collaborating, but now it's really working together. And as I mentioned before, with respect to industry, we have programs which are open to all industries in all Europe, and where industries have open doors in all the synchrotrons. So this is really a step forward. Is because, as Anna was mentioning, one has the fear of losing the clients. This is something very human, as you said, and this is something that may happen also in our world. But it's important that we lose this fear and that we open to everybody. And this is happening. And the visibility of LEAPS now also in the industrial world makes the fact that many companies are now understanding that there are instruments that they can use because of the communication has improved. The communication which Anna was mentioning. We need to communicate what questions we can answer in our facilities. And if you do that, facility per facility is much more complicated and difficult, and you reach less people than if you do all together as a consortium, and then you really reach a wider audience. And so you can solve more problems, you can be more useful as the sum of everybody. And of course, the voice of LIPS, when I talk of LIPS, I mean, we have tens of thousands of users, academic users, thousands of industrial users, and all this big community is now much more linked than it was before, and is also visible to the stakeholders in the national government and at the level of the European Commission. So I think is the right way to go to bridge facilities. And when I talk of LIPS, I'm not. When I talk of bridging facilities, I'm not only talking of LIPS. You may have heard we are now. We have created a network of different analytical facilities, what we call ARIE, analytical research infrastructures in Europe, where there is LIPS, there is LENS, the neutrons, there are the platform of microscope, there are the laser lab, there are the high field magnets, there are the protons, there are the ions. And so, because when we talk of facilities, we are talking of wonderful instruments, but there are fields of research or questions that needs complementary instruments.
Well,
and
Ernst,
that we talk each other.
Okay, can I go to Ernst now? Just because as a company, it is actually a very important point in terms of communication. Is do you know as a company where to look, and when you find a specific service, or when you need a specific research infrastructure, how do you find your way? Ernst, if you're with us. Otherwise, I also have a question for Caterina. All right, well, then Caterina, if you're still with us, then I'll ask you a question, because I do have a specific question for you from the chat. Isn't it time for sustainable and fast-track access for applied demand? As mentioned in the presentation, how can be explored different avenues for access that are not targeted at scientific excellence, but applied demand?
Yes, of course. It is. There is this fast access. Of course, we have the access for excellence, and that is a competitive process, and where all the public institutions apply. But then we have the possibility also of fast access, which is for industries or for also academic, but wanted to have a fast answer. Always that it is, if it is funded and if it is, of course, technically feasible. And as I mentioned before, there are also these projects as the Tamata and Calypso Plus, and as the one that we are developing for the next, possibly next year, where companies can really apply to the project and have access to the facility for free, because they are funded by European funds. So we are working on that.
Okay, well, thank you. We are reaching the time of the end of this session, so maybe just a final question, and whoever wants to come in, jump in here. But just, well, Ernst, I think you're back with us. The CAROTS project is an Interreg-funded project, and it has this very important regional dimension. So can we just, for this final bit, put this discussion of the importance of bringing closer industry and science into the regional context? Why do you think, from your own perspective, the perspective of the industry of research infrastructure or an intermediary company, what does it matter for regional development? Does it matter, actually?
Oh, it matters tremendously, I would say. I mean, I'm here in a region where there's a lot of universities and academic groups with high excellence. There's a lot of larger companies, especially on the Danish side and in northern Germany. And I think is so dense. So if we look at this as a lot of big bricks, then having these the mortar of the mediators of different types will make this a very nice, construction. So having the big bricks in close relation to each other geographically, and then adding companies that can run around agile as we are in between and function as a mortar. I think the success rate is very high because of the closeness in the region. And there's already a lot of excellence, a lot of brains. So we need just to add a little bit of heart to that brain. And I think that is what we're doing when we're working together like this in networks, getting to know each other. And I also, in that respect, think that we will give work to each other, because people might come to me and then I will realize that we are not the best partner in this situation. Someone else is better at this, and then I will direct them to Simon or Bernhard or someone else. So yes, more companies around here will for sure be developed due to all these good things that can happen.
Very good.
So answer is yes.
All right, that seems very clear. Caterina, but do you want to come in on this question of the importance of bringing closer all the stakeholders to strengthen the regional innovation ecosystem? Do you agree?
Yes, of course, that is essential. And I want to mention also that there are also these technological clusters that used to happen regionally. And they are also very, very useful, because it's good that there is in the industrial world also this collaboration, so that there is a spokesperson, let's say, that can be the intermediate between the researcher and the industry, not only providing the services, but also being the word of the industry. And that is the natural partner also of these CAROTS companies, because it's important, as we have said, all of us, it's important the communication. And the communication is made easier if you have people who are dedicated to that and who are the voice of a group of different, of many members.
Very good. One last attempt with you, Ernst. Are you with us? No, it seems that Ernst is definitely gone. Poor Ernst is probably hearing us, but...
I hear you perfectly well, but...
Good, Ernst, you're here.
I'm back.
Good.
I'm back, perfect.
Welcome back.
All right.
Well, actually, the final words are yours. So I think you've got a complete freedom. I can ask you a question. You probably heard what the things that we've been covering.
I heard
All
what
right,
you were
then
asking.
what would you like to end up with?
No, so the communication in general is not an issue. We do find our contact partners that we need. What I see as a bigger topic is for these heavy infrastructure setups is the need from industry has changed. We lost a little bit the interest in the fundamentals of like materials, for example, where we would need all these infrastructure. Now I know in life science it's a different story, but in the old classical mechanical electrical industry, a lot of the direction goes now to other ways of innovation, digital business models, and I don't know what, which leaves us at the moment at a little bit at the point where we have lost our interest and capabilities to focus also on the fundamentals. I strongly believe this comes back. And I see companies where they are refocusing on that. So from a linkage point, it's not a question of communication. We find our contacts, and I think what Anna described on how we should interact, many of us can do that and want to do that. It's more like, do we still have an appetite to go in that direction, or do we think there are shortcuts to be gained through different ways of innovation? I strongly find that a pity, because I believe more and more, and we see that, for example, on the material research with the rare elements, we have a distinct need for that, except that many companies don't see that yet. So I believe the time will help us. The time will make us focus again on these kind of interactions. And we have lots of good examples. So like what Caterina described, I can only second that. When we want to do that, we find our ways, and it's not that communication is wrong or so. I think both the researchers and also industry has learned over the last couple of years to get closer to each other. It's only that we need to refocus what we do. And in industry now, also with Corona and the more nationalism coming back up, and Europe becoming more important, I do believe that for many of us in industry, we also refocus again more to the fundamentals to get a real competitive advantage, and that will help us to foster more the connections with the CAROTS, to foster more the connections with the heavy research infrastructures. So I'm quite positive. I think it's more a question of time and patience, and for the CAROTS not to be too frustrated if it doesn't work in the first attempt. We all need to learn the way.
All right. Thank you very much for this positive note. I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this panel. So before we close this conference, I have a few highlights, a quick summary that I'd like to share. We've heard one tagline that I like very much from Anna is that carriers are innovation providers. And clearly we learned that carriers can provide strategic advice based on research and help solve societal and industrial challenges. They need to be agile and adapt all the time, and to be successful being a small or medium-sized company is a good thing. However, from what Johannes, Klumpers said, it's also clear that in the ecosystem where there are RTOs and TTOs and other intermediaries, well, the existence of CAROTS still needs to be lobbied for. Nothing wrong with that. It just means that some more interaction with policymakers will have to take place. And to support them, we should discuss alternative support schemes like Attract, that was mentioned a couple of times, both by Johannes and Ernst. But there are probably other avenues possible. So with these, a few final announcements on behalf of the project, announcement of thanks actually, because the project would like to thank those behind the scenes and for making this conference happening. There is also the founders of the project that need to be formally thanked, so Interreg, of course, and the Baltic Sea region. Finally, there will be plenty coming up with the project. Lizzy mentioned the competition that is soon to be launched on new ideas for new carriers, and the fact that one new carrier is going to be funded. In the context of the project, a workshop of the new network of scientific service providers will take place on September 23rd. All this information is available on the project's website. And with this, I'd like to thank very much all the speakers that took part in the conference. I'd like to thank you in the audience, and well, I wish you well. Goodbye.